So he was talking all about Israel and how they're so great and they have the best intel, and he was working as a private investigator for Julie Anderson and her husband, who were stealing my evidence and trying to ruin my case for me to get my son back, which was putting me in the hole. And I don't know who paid them the most. I don't know who would have given Julie Anderson and her husband the biggest payoff. But I know for a fact that taking those video cards was going to benefit Marianne McIntosh. And I know that the police had already deleted some of my video documentation for her. She's getting, that woman and that department's getting a lot of favors, if you ask me. And when she basically sunk my ship with this hearing by trying to punish me after I had confronted her publicly in court, she basically made a point to sink my ship, knew that I was going to fire her at that point, and then said, "You've burned all your bridges." I've burned all my bridges. No, I think you stole from me and your husband stole from me and you ruined my bridge. You were never a bridge. I mean, like what? A bridge over the moat? For yourself? And so basically, yeah, conflict of interest is theft of your client's evidence so that they don't win the case. That is grounds for a new attorney. And I didn't even have to say that much to the judge, and he knew it. He knew it was sufficient that she had jacked up her costs and claimed that she needed to be paid so much money when he already knew that it was a lie. But that's what they all do over there. They all lie. They torture people in Wenatchee, and then they collectively lie. And honestly, I don't know where the money is going for Julie and her husband, because it didn't look like they had the best clothing, but some people don't put their money into clothes and things that you can see on the outside. They put it into their kids' education, into private funds. And I stepped away from the camera view right now because I was cooking and I needed to take this thing off of the stove. And so that was my second lawyer. My first lawyer was Paul Castle. And Paul Castle, as I've said, was Judge Hotchkiss's friend. And he didn't want to get any of the evidence that would have basically had my son returned to me immediately. And after he and Judge Hotchkiss ignored my requests for discovery and for my records, making it impossible for me to appeal when he did this illegal thing, I mean one of a number of illegal things that he did. After that, then I had Julie. And everybody thought I was going to go to Julie because from what I can gather, that area had things set up ahead of time, which is why they wanted to introduce me through Michael, the federal post office worker, to Julie, who was supposedly being touted as a real defender of women's rights. You know, for that nudist woman. Oh, let's see. And after Julie, I mean, after they stole from me, I wasn't able to get any of that documentation into the record. I was being tortured all the time by probably their PI for Israel. And because I saw him around the places that I had to stay at a few times. And then after that, my son was being tortured worse. That's when I really saw it. It was after that point when I saw him being cut up and punched and all kinds of things. And it was after I was with her that they then banned me. Actually, no, my son was being tortured already. And then I had her there. And then I asked her to ask the judge to allow me to at least audio tape. And she basically put in a point for the court which allowed them to not have me audio tape and not have me photograph anything. And she could have made a much stronger point about things, and she didn't. And I knew that she was doing a favor for the state, which was doing a disfavor to my son because it was allowing him to be tortured. And then the judge said that, okay, you don't get any lawyer now. You don't get anybody after Julie Thornton. Julie Anderson. You don't get anybody. She was it. And then he forced me to be pro se for myself while I was traumatized seeing how my son was being tortured by the state. So they basically wanted me to be traumatized and see my son tortured, and then this judge was saying that I didn't get another person since I didn't like Julie. So basically, I was punished because I didn't like Judge Hotchkiss's best friend colluding with the state and Judge Hotchkiss to keep evidence out of the court and to conveniently remove a motion for change of venue because that entire area was prejudiced. And he didn't like the fact that I didn't want to have all my evidence stolen from by Julie's husband. And Julie Anderson, by the way, was a quote-unquote Protestant. So Julie was not Catholic. She basically had a PI person that worked with Israel. And she was Protestant, and she was corrupt, and her husband was United States military. And that's how that rounds up. And then I was on my own. I wasn't able to get anything in. I was too traumatized by seeing the trauma to my son to do anything for myself. And I was being tortured and forced from one place, to live from one place to the next. Basically, they just kept me disorganized the entire time, so I couldn't stabilize myself and have one place to sit down and start, writing any motions for on my own behalf or for my son. I had no place to collect records from the state to even be able to challenge what they were doing, and they knew it. And after I had the next time that they gave me a lawyer, they made me go almost another year without an attorney. And then the next time that they gave me a lawyer was after they had served me with termination papers for termination of my parental rights. And they gave me these papers for termination of my parental rights after they got basically they got their psychological evaluation, which was a sham, from Lucretia Krebs. Then they forced me to go to another psychiatrist or a psychologist in Wenatchee to have an IQ test. And when that was done, Chris Rizzolo was still hanging out with me. And when he found out what the results were, I told him I was just hoping that it wouldn't be too high, and I was going to aim for a 138. And I thought that would be just fine. And so then I find out that that my score is exactly 138, which is just barely above average, which I already knew was barely above average. But then people started using that against me to say that, no, I was not really that smart. I was just barely above average. And I could tell Chris Rizzolo was happy about it, so that was another reason why I knew he was never on my side. He wanted me in jail, and he wanted me to look stupid, because I guess somebody was interested in me that that he was nervous about. And it wasn't him. So the next thing that happened was basically I was just shoved from one place to the next. I was being tortured, I was being lied about, I was being forced out of housing, and based from the moment that I said anything about Julie and that I even met Julie, my ship was sunk. And they just, at that point, all that the state wanted and all that they were gathering was information for the federal government and for the United Kingdom, I'm sure. They wanted to have a psychological evaluation. It made me sound nuts. They wanted to have an IQ test, which is none of the state's business. It's something that the federal government would ask for. And they wanted to have a CT of my head to rule out head injury. But really, what they did is they got another CT after they had one from me in Oregon, and they just wanted to compare the two. And then I didn't realize that I was going